One day, Issei lost his beloved girlfriend, Ilya, in a terrible accident. She had always worn a beautiful smile, and now, as he stood by her coffin, he felt the weight of her absence crushing him. He mourned quietly at her funeral, staring at her body, lost in grief. But then, he heard her voice from behind him. Issei, don't look at my body. It's not lovely anymore. He froze. Slowly he turned around, and there she was. No, they were. 3 versions of Ilya stood before him. A child, a teenager, and an adult. Confused, Issei rubbed his eyes. He thought he was hallucinating. One ghost might make sense in his broken state, but 3. As his mind swirled, he dropped to his knees, covering his face with his hands. Why are there 3 of you? He asked, barely holding back his panic. The child version of Ilya giggled softly. Which one of us do you want to hear it from? Anyone is fine, Issei whispered, still trying to understand what was happening. Teen Ilya stepped forward, her expression more serious. We're all Ilya, but each of us represents a different regret, something left unresolved. Until those regrets are fulfilled, we can't move on to the afterlife. That's why there are 3 of us. Issei's heart sank. The thought of losing her once was unbearable, and now he was faced with the possibility of losing her 3 times over. But he knew what he had to do, even though the thought pained him. He would help them, even if it meant saying goodbye again and again. With a heavy heart, he nodded, agreeing to help. All 3 versions of Ilya smiled, their faces lighting up. For now, they could be together again just like before. But Issei knew the truth. This was the beginning of a painful journey, his never-ending nightmare, where every moment spent with her would bring him closer to the final goodbye. The next day, Issei was woken by adult Ilya as she entered his room. Her face lit up with a playful smile. This feels just like our first meeting, she said cheerfully. Still half asleep, Issei rubbed his eyes and asked, Why do you have an adult appearance? Ilya only grinned. That's a secret. They got ready to go out, though Issei couldn't shake the heavy feeling in his chest. As he prepared, Ilya noticed his mood. Why do you look so gloomy? She asked, tilting her head. This is going to be a fun trip. Where are we going? Issei asked, trying to match her enthusiasm. You'll find out when we get there. Just look forward to it, Ilya replied, her tone light and carefree. Despite her adult appearance, Issei realized she hadn't changed much on the inside. Curious, he asked, Where are the other Ilyas? 1 Ilya for each regret, she explained casually. The others are resting right now. Issei was surprised. He always saw Ilya as someone who lived her life to the fullest, someone without regrets. To think she had some left unsettled was a shock to him. It didn't seem like her at all. As they arrived at their destination, Issei recognized the place immediately, her favorite cake shop. Ah, so she wants to eat here once more before moving on, he thought. But she's already dead. Before he could get lost in his thoughts, Ilya tugged at his sleeve. What are you spacing out for? Come here. She smiled and pulled him toward a noodle soup stall nearby. Ilya loved sweet things, while Issei was never good with them. He preferred spicy food, something Ilya always struggled with. As they sat at the noodle shop, they ordered a special bowl of super hot noodles for 2. Itadakimasu, Ilya chirped, ready to dig in. Issei looked at her, concerned. Are you sure you'll be okay with this? You're not good with spicy food. Ilya chuckled. Since I'm an adult now, I can handle it. I've grown up, she said confidently before slurping down the spicy noodles. But the moment she swallowed, her face turned red. It's so hot, she gasped, fanning her mouth. Issei couldn't help but ask, why would you put yourself through this? She looked at him, her eyes watering from the heat. Because You like spicy food, right? She said with a soft smile. When I was alive, you always had to match my taste because I liked sweet things. You were always so kind to me. So, I really wanted to come here with you, to this spicy noodle shop, at least once. Issei's heart ached. He hadn't realized how much she thought about those little things. In his mind, he replied, me too, you know. He paused, then said quietly, Is it time to go? Ilya's smile faded a little as she nodded. Yeah, I must go now. She stood up, looking at him one last time. Tomorrow, I'll leave tomorrow's Ilya to you, so please take care of her. Issei watched her go, his chest heavy with a deep emptiness. In the end, this is the journey after her death, he thought. The Ilya that appears in front of me is nothing more than an illusion of her past life. I won't be able to shake this feeling of emptiness just like that. The next morning, Issei felt a hard pat on his chest, jolting him awake. It was Child Ilya grinning down at him. Please do your best today, okay? She chirped. Issei, still groggy, rubbed his eyes. Yeah. But what do you want me to do? Child Ilya rummaged through her small backpack, pulling out an item. Can you read something to me? She asked sweetly. When Issei saw what she had in her hands, his heart skipped a beat. It was his old poetry notebook. How do you have that? He asked, shocked. Without answering, Child Ilya handed him a letter. It was from adult Ilya. He opened it and read, In consideration for your mental condition, I'll leave Ilya's kid version to you. Well then, do your best. Issei sighed. Before he could react further, Child Ilya tugged at his sleeve. Read the poem to me, please, she said eagerly, her eyes wide with anticipation. Issei hesitated, but when he glanced at her hopeful face, he couldn't refuse. Do you really want to hear it? He asked. She nodded, but her smile faltered a bit. Do you not want to read it? She asked, her voice tinged with sadness. Seeing her like that, Issei relented. It's for Ilya, he thought, and she's just a child. It won't be that bad. He cleared his throat and began to read. There's a light that shines and turns all to dust. That light is so hot that I can't touch it, so dazzling that it forces me to avert my eyes. But Ilya, in the gap of the world, you sway on a sea of flowers. By only being there, you show me a scene that looks like a dream, while shedding a glimmer of light from your feet as you walk. When he finished, Child Ilya clapped her hands and laughed. I don't understand it, but it's so romantic, she said, giggling. Issei smiled faintly, but then she caught him off guard. Since long ago, you've always wanted me to hear your poems, right? His eyes widened. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, he muttered, shocked at how much she knew. Child Ilya beamed at him. You really like me, don't you? She teased as her form began to fade, drifting toward the afterlife. Well then, bye-bye. Issei sat there, stunned, watching her disappear. How did she know? He wondered, feeling the familiar weight of emptiness wash over him. Every time Ilya faded away, it felt like he was drowning, sinking deeper into the realization that each goodbye brought him closer to losing her forever. The next day, teen Ilya appeared before Issei, full of energy. We're going somewhere far today, she said with a smile. It's a secret destination, so I can't tell you where. As they boarded the train, Issei noticed something strange. Her appearance had changed to the current version of Ilya. She seemed more like the Ilya he had known before her death. This is the last time, she said softly, looking out the window. But it's no different from when we used to go to school together. Issei's thoughts swirled. That's right, it feels like she's still alive. Could it be? Is she still alive? He was lost in thought until Ilya gently nudged him, breaking his trance. Do you remember the first time we met? She asked. Of course I do, he replied. There's not a single thing about it I could forget. He remembered those hellish days when he was bullied, when he felt completely alone. But Ilya was the light that broke through the darkness. She had wiped away his blood and stood by him, even when he tried to push her away. "Why did you care about me back then?" he had asked her, frustrated. "You should have just left me alone. I'm pathetic." Ilya had smiled at him, saying, "There's no way I could leave an injured person like that." He had warned her, "If you're seen with me, the bullies will turn on you too." She had laughed. "How kind of you, to be thinking about me when you're the one who's hurt." Back in the present, Issei thanked her. "Meeting you was the greatest happiness in my life. You saved me." Ilya smiled softly. "The same goes for me. I'm glad I met you, Issei. Thank you for everything." In his mind, Issei was screaming, "I don't want this. I don't want her to go. Please don't go." Sensing his thoughts, Ilya reassured him. "This day isn't over yet. I won't just suddenly leave." They arrived at their destination, and Ilya led Issei through a park and into a long tunnel. As they emerged on the other side, Issei stopped in his tracks, stunned. Before him was a vast field of flowers, glowing in the sunlight. Ilya stood in the middle, surrounded by the blossoms. "This place," Issei whispered. "I didn't know a place like this even existed." It was the very scene from a photo on his phone, the one he always imagined Ilya standing in, because he knew it would make her look even more beautiful. Ilya looked around in awe. "It's so beautiful. I never thought there'd be a place like this." Issei's voice trembled. "I always wanted to go to this place together with you." Issei finally realized what had been going on. All this time, Ilya had never told him whose regrets she was carrying. But now, standing in that beautiful field of flowers, it all became clear to him. The things Ilya had been doing, they weren't her regrets. They were his. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he burst out, "You've been doing all of this just for my sake?" Ilya smiled warmly, her voice gentle. "If you're feeling down, there's no way I can leave you like that." In his mind, Issei knew this was exactly like her. She never let him feel sad. But now he was the one crying. His heart ached with both gratitude and sorrow. Ilya looked at him, her expression soft and understanding. "It's okay to take it slowly," she said. "But promise me you'll keep moving forward. Keep living. That's my last wish." Issei's voice cracked as he replied, "You're unfair. You really are unfair." But if that was what she wanted, then he had no choice but to keep living. All the thoughts he'd had about what to do after she was gone, suddenly, they vanished. He loved her too much. Her personality, her kindness, her strength. She was the reason he had kept going. The reason he was still alive. "Ilya," he said, tears streaming down his face. "You're already dead, but you also lived. So, even if I'm alone, I'll keep moving forward. I promise." He tried to smile, but the pain of saying goodbye was overwhelming. "Even though I want to send you off with a smile, I'm sorry, I can't." Ilya's eyes glistened as she held back her own tears. "Don't be like that," she said softly, "or I'll end up crying too." Trying to cheer him up, she added, "You know, I introduced you to parts of myself, hoping it would make you smile." Issei let out a shaky laugh. "That's just like you," he said, his voice filled with affection. As the last version of Ilya began to fade, Issei knew this was it. His heart clenched, but he managed to say, "This is the real goodbye. Farewell, Ilya. Thanks for everything." Ilya smiled one final time. "Goodbye, Issei," she said softly, her voice echoing as she faded into the distance. "I wish you good health." Issei stood in silence, watching her disappear completely, leaving him alone in the field of flowers. The world felt still, almost too quiet. It was over. Ilya was gone. The next morning, his alarm rang. The sound echoed through his room. A morning without Ilya. But Issei knew he had made a promise. As he got up, he whispered to himself, "As promised, I'll keep moving forward, Ilya." With that, Issei stepped into a new chapter of his life, carrying her memory with him as he moved toward a future she had helped him face. Hi, Manhwa here. Even though I do not have a girlfriend, this makes me feel like I'm missing out on some good things. The way Ilya became a ghost to prevent Issei from harming himself shows that she is truly a one-in-a-million girlfriend. What a lucky guy Issei is. Hopefully, those of you who have a girlfriend already have someone like Ilya, and if not, let's pray that we will meet someone like her someday. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'll be uploading weekly, so stay tuned. Your support means a lot, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.